In Chapter 1, Farseer lives a secluded life with his wolf Night Eyes. His mentor, Chade Fallstar, unexpectedly visits, urging Fitz to return to Buckkeep to train Nettle, Fitz's daughter, in the skill. Though Fitz feels a pull to reconnect, he declines, reluctant to re-enter that life. Chade attempts a demonstration with magical powder, but it fails, prompting nostalgic memories and deepening their bond. After a night of sharing stories, Chade departs, leaving Fitz unsettled and longing for change. Moved by Chade's visit, Fitz contemplates exploring new horizons with Night Eyes, reigniting a sense of adventure. In Chapter 2, Starling visits Fitz with his foster son Hap. Fitz reflects on his solitary life and contemplates Hap's independence. Hap reveals that Starling is married, which shocks Fitz, who feels betrayed. Fitz realizes he was deceived by Starling, whom he thought was unattached. Hap shares stories from Buckkeep, including disturbing events where a witted woman was publicly attacked but mysteriously escaped with the help of crows. Fitz listens to Hap's tales, realizing it's time for Hap to begin his own path. Reflecting on his loneliness, Fitz understands the impending changes in his life and relationships. In Chapter 3, Fitz confronts the truth about his relationship with Starling. He realizes their connection was shallow and based on convenience rather than genuine affection. Fitz learns she has been informing Chade, his former mentor, about him and confronts her regarding her true intentions and her younger husband, which shocks him. They argue, with Fitz deciding to end their relationship, feeling used and betrayed. Starling reacts angrily, especially when Fitz refuses to be with a married woman, and blames Fitz's foster son Hap for her dismissal. Fitz stands firm, sending her away, and reasserts his independence and values. In Chapter 4, Tom Badgerlock helps his foster son Hap secure an apprenticeship despite financial struggles. They meet Jinna, a hedge witch who boosts Hap's spirits, and Tom navigates Baylor's prejudice over his wit abilities. Jinna gives Tom a charm for his garden. Later, Tom reflects on his life and anticipates Hap's return. The Fool arrives, rekindling their bond, and they discuss Tom's past, including his involvement in prophecies. The Fool reveals his true name, Beloved, and the two share an intimate moment. Tom decides firmly not to return to Buckkeep despite the Fool's entreaties. In Chapter 5, Fitz reflects on his past, including his time with his uncle Verity Farseer, who transformed into a dragon to protect the Six Duchies. After Verity's death, Fitz mourns the loss of his king. He visits a stone garden where Verity's dragon form rests, feeling the absence of his king deeply. Fitz recognizes that his old life is over and embraces the opportunity to shape his own future. Later, he and the Fool share memories, and the Fool presents a mysterious wooden crown, suggesting their shared fate might be tied to something greater. In Chapter 6, Fitz saves Night Eyes, his wolf companion, after he chokes on a fish. In a desperate act, Fitz uses his magic to merge with the wolf's body and repair his failing heart. As Fitz struggles to withdraw from Night Eye's body, the skill causes confusion and disorientation. The Fool intervenes, using the skill to pull Fitz back into his own body, saving both their lives. Though Fitz resents the Fool's intervention, he's grateful. They return to the cabin, physically and emotionally exhausted, but Fitz reflects on the deeper bond between them and the consequences of their shared magic. In Chapter 7, Fitz and the Fool arrive at a cabin where Rolf and Holly, members of the Old Blood, begin teaching them the ways of the Old Blood. Rolf's harsh methods frustrate Fitz, but Night Eyes adapts more easily. Rolf emphasizes the need for separation between bonded individuals, a lesson both Fitz and Night Eyes struggle with. Fitz reflects on his difficult relationship with Rolf, especially over their differing views on the bond between humans and animals. Despite learning valuable skills, Fitz and Night Eyes remain distant from the Old Blood community, refusing to fully accept their customs. Eventually, Fitz leaves after an awkward situation involving Tawny. In Chapter 8, Fitz reflects on his past regrets and his growing responsibility toward Hap. He discusses Dutiful's birth and the mysterious woman threatening the future with the Fool. Fitz prepares for a journey to Buckkeep, leaving Hap to tend to the farm, but struggles with his own physical limitations. A stranger arrives with a message from Chade, urgently summoning Fitz to return home. Fitz plans to leave the next day, instructing Hap to follow him at first light. As they prepare, Fitz senses danger and uncertainty, but resolves to face it, trusting the wolf to protect Hap during their absence. In Chapter 9, Fitz and the Fool arrive secretly at Buckkeep, where Fitz acts as the Fool's servant. Fitz is led to Chade, who reveals that Prince Dutiful is missing, possibly abducted or having run away. Chade expresses concern over the prince being witted and fears his safety. He shares details about Dutiful's strained relationship with the skill and his bond with a hunting cat, which Chade suspects may be linked to the prince's disappearance. Chade asks Fitz to use the skill to find Dutiful before an Outlander delegation arrives for his betrothal. Fitz agrees to investigate, needing more information to solve the mystery. In Chapter 10, Kettrican's marriage to Verity strengthens the alliance between the Six Duchies and the Mountain Kingdom. The protagonist adjusts to life as a servant in Buckkeep under Lord Golden and seeks information about Prince Dutiful's whereabouts. He encounters hostility at court and reflects on his past. He visits a hedge witch, Jinnah, who agrees to care for Hap and warns of growing hostility towards witted people. Jinnah creates a charm to help the protagonist be more persuasive. After leaving, he notices a more positive reaction from strangers, but is unsettled. He returns to Buckkeep, where he encounters a tense situation in the stables. In Chapter 11, Fitz investigates Prince Dutiful's disappearance, suspecting it involves political motives tied to his wit and an old blood family. Unable to locate the prince using the skill, he plans a trip to Gallatin with Lord Golden under the guise of hunting. Fitz reflects on his past and prepares for the journey. Chade urges the need for urgency. Fitz's thoughts are interrupted by memories of Hans, his old friend who now works at Buckkeep. As Fitz and Lord Golden prepare to leave, they are joined by huntswoman Laurel, who is tasked with accompanying them. In Chapter 12, Fitz, Lord Golden, and Laurel are delayed at a ferry landing while awaiting a shipment of sea salt. Fitz reflects on his relationship with Lord Golden and his role as a servant. As they wait, Laurel expresses concern over Prince Dutiful's marriage to an Outlander. Fitz's wolf, Night Eyes, reconnects with him, and Fitz resolves to stay by his side despite the pain of his eventual loss. They board a ferry and arrive at Lady Brisinga's manor, where Fitz carries out his duties. Fitz also notices strange behavior at the manor, hinting at hidden tensions and secrets. In Chapter 13, Lord Golden attends a dinner at Lady Brisinga's estate, where conversation focuses on hunting cats. Lord Golden inquiries about a missed cat given to Prince Dutiful, but receives no answers. He criticizes the prince's seclusion and his upcoming betrothal to a very young girl. After dinner, Fitz investigates the household for any signs of spying, especially concerning the prince. He learns about the household's preference for cats over dogs, and notices strange behavior from the servants. Later, Fitz overhears Laurel revealing that Prince Dutiful has been at the estate, leaving subtle signs of his presence, including an empty enclosure for his missed cat. In Chapter 14, Fitz has a troubling dream about Prince Dutiful's danger, which he shares with the Fool. After the dream, Fitz joins a hunting party, but is separated by an errand for Lord Golden. He senses Night Eyes is hurt and follows his trail, finding the wolf in pain. Night Eyes reveals that the prince was taken by a man and a cat, indicating a dangerous plot. Fitz plans to track them after resting. Meanwhile, Lord Golden discusses political matters, hinting that the Brisingas might be involved, and Fitz reflects on the prince's disappearance and his current situation. In Chapter 15, Fitz finds Night Eyes injured, realizing their bond is known by their enemies. After tending to the wolf, Fitz promises to return. Lord Golden causes a scandal by kissing Sybil, escalating tensions with Sidel. Fitz and Laurel track the prince, struggling with a difficult trail. Night Eyes reappears, and they continue the pursuit. As night falls, they make camp, preparing to continue the chase. Laurel opens up about her past with witted folk, and Fitz reflects on the tension between them. Later, Fitz uses the skill to gain insight, finding peace through the connection before falling asleep. In Chapter 16, Fitz and his companions track the prince through the forest, but struggle to follow his trail on the road. They arrive at a village and find an inn built from memory stone, a material linked to the Elderlings. Fitz, feeling uneasy, senses a headache coming on. He and the Fool discuss the significance of the inn and its connection to Elderling artifacts. Fitz learns of a recent killing of one of the prince's companions linked to local hostility toward those with old blood. Realizing they must move quickly, they prepare to ride out ahead of pursuing townsfolk. In Chapter 17, Fitz and his group capture an archer to gather information on Prince Dutiful. Struggling with his loyalty to the Farseers and his kinship with the Old Blood, Fitz admits to being witted. The archer and Laurel escape, prompting Fitz and the Fool to pursue them. As they track the pair, they encounter a confrontation with the prince's group. Fitz narrowly avoids Dutiful's sword and manages to steal the prince's horse, fleeing with him. The Fool follows, and they escape, leaving the prince's companions behind. Dutiful struggles with confusion and shouts to return, but Fitz and the Fool continue their flight. In Chapter 18, Tom, Fitz, and Lord Golden confront Prince Dutiful, who resists returning to Buckkeep. The prince reveals his wit abilities and bond with a woman of old blood, which concerns Tom. As they prepare for an attack by the Piebalds, Tom contemplates his own wit experiences and fears for the prince's safety. Night Eyes senses the prince's turmoil. Tom and the Fool make plans to escape. The Fool urges Tom to protect the prince, stressing the importance of keeping him alive for the future. Tom ultimately decides to use a monolith to escape, leaving the Fool and Night Eyes to fight. In Chapter 19, Fitz and Prince Dutiful struggle to survive in a turbulent sea after emerging from a skill pillar. Fitz fights his guilt and desperation, realizing that his mission to return Dutiful to Kettricken has failed. Dutiful, nearly lost to the skill, is confused but alive. Fitz, overwhelmed by loss, reflects on his past and his unfulfilled relationships, particularly with Nettle. As he contemplates their situation, he finds an object on the beach, which distracts him from his grief. The chapter ends with Fitz reluctantly returning to Dutiful, haunted by the challenges ahead. In Chapter 20, Fitz and Prince Dutiful explore a mysterious beach where Fitz discovers treasure-filled alcoves. Fitz realizes someone deliberately placed the items. When the prince questions Fitz about his use of the skill and wit, Fitz reveals that Dutiful is being manipulated by a dead woman's spirit inhabiting a cat. They find a gold chain with a figurine, but a dangerous creature appears and threatens them. In a desperate escape, Fitz drags the prince into the water, activating a skill pillar. They emerge in a foreign, abandoned Elderling city, and Fitz plans to return to Buck, despite Dutiful's fear and resistance. In Chapter 21, Fitz and Prince Dutiful are captured by the Piebalds. Dutiful is physically weak and manipulated by the woman in the group. Fitz threatens to kill Dutiful to prevent him from being further used, leading to tense negotiations with Lodwine, the Piebald leader. Fitz offers to help deceive Lord Golden in exchange for his companion's release. As they travel, the protagonist worries about the growing danger from the woman's influence over Dutiful. They reach a cave, where Fitz is reunited with the Fool and Night Eyes. In Chapter 22, Tom Badgerlock and Prince Dutiful deal with the aftermath of killing Peladine, the Mist Cat. Dutiful mourns the loss, while Tom reflects on their actions and the mistakes of the Piebalds. After the burial, the healer tends to their wounds. Deerkin reveals his past involvement with the Piebalds, expressing regret, and Laurel emphasizes the need to return Dutiful to the Queen. Tensions remain high, and Tom stays vigilant. Later, Tom, in a spiritual connection with Night Eyes, experiences a dream of past hunts, but wakes to find the wolf gone as the day begins, leaving him in sorrow. In Chapter 23, Fitz mourns Night Eye's death, holding a private funeral while Prince Dutiful, though grieving, resents Fitz for killing the cat, but agrees to teach him the skill in secret. The two discuss their pasts, with Dutiful hinting that Fitz might be Chade's son. Fitz reflects on Dutiful's loneliness and the tensions surrounding his betrothal. They return to Buckkeep, where Fitz feels emotionally exhausted and disconnected yet connected to the past. Fitz contemplates the changes at Buckkeep, supporting Dutiful and considering his future role with the prince as they navigate political and personal complexities. In Chapter 24, Fitz wakes up late in Lord Golden's chambers after being drugged by Chade. After some teasing from Lord Golden, Fitz decides to visit Buckkeep Town to check on Hap, who is struggling with his apprenticeship. Fitz reflects on Prince Dutiful's arranged marriage, thinking about the prince's lost opportunities for love. In town, Fitz stops by Jinna's shop, where she offers him tea and discusses Hap's behavior. Jinna expresses concern for Hap's future, while Fitz decides to let him experience life and love. Fitz reflects on the nature of history and how the past cannot be fixed.